Welcome, everyone, to episode 24 of Paperboy Ventures. Today, we're joined by the team behind Cheddies, the fast-growing cheese cracker brand based in Texas. So we've got three guys with us today. They're all in Austin, Texas, as you can see over there. We'll start with the two founders of the brand who also happen to be brothers, and that's Francisco and Tomas. So, brothers, welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah.
Excellent. And we also have the brand's CEO, Anish Sheth, with us. Yeah. Anish, welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
All right. So usually don't have this many people on the pod, so this is going to be fun. But really what we're here to do today is unpack the full story behind Cheddies. And I know that Francisco and Tomas, you founded this business about a decade ago, which is kind of wild, but back in 2015. So really, we'll start there with how this whole thing came together. But before we even go there, can you just give us the quick elevator pitch on what is Cheddies?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, you just quickly tacked on a decade to us. We used to be the two young brothers doing something kind of weird, and now definitely feels...
yeah, it's sinking in after 10 years, I guess.
Yeah. Man, so what is... you want to hit us with it?
I guess I'm in the front. So Cheddies are a high-protein, all-natural cheese cracker. We pride ourselves on not using any artificial dyes, colorings, preservatives, any of the other junk that some of the larger brands are using currently on shelf. And so we targeted the natural channel, and our biggest pride and joy is we use cheddar cheese as one of our main ingredients, and work with some close partners that help us formulate our own cheese. And it's kind of our golden kind of prized element, attribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see real cheese is often what is cited in your marketing materials. Can you kind of just talk about that versus what the status quo is in a lot of American snacks?
Yeah, I mean, when we learned about the process to make Cheddies, it's literally getting a giant block of cheese and putting it through a grinder and grinding it into the dough to make the crackers. So it's not a bunch of powders. Just kind of mixed together to make a cracker. It's like using real fresh cheese. It's it's a second ingredient. It's like a big part of what makes it special and different. Is being able to do that.
Yeah, it was a big change, I guess, in all the manufacturing that was being done, and for the cheese cracker industry at the time, when we would go into facilities and show up with a truckload of cheddar cheese aged, and he's like, all right, let's put 40,000 pounds of cheddar in this mixer and hit go. And the facility would turn blank stares back at us. They're used to powders and, just these old fashioned fluorescent orange dyes going into their cheese crackers. And we took one look at that and said, it's a cheese cracker. It should be made out of cheese. And so it's really how kind of got that.
Yeah, and I feel like that lands really well in 2025 from a food culture standpoint. I feel like people have more so woken up to that. But yeah, the cheese crackers that I grew up with certainly were not made that way, and were made with the powders and the dyes that were around in the 90s. So it's cool to see you guys build this out and take it to this level after 10 years. But yeah, let's go back to 2015. Would love to hear kind of the origin story and what inspired you to do this, because from the sounds of it, neither one of you came from CPG, right? You were in different fields before this.
Right. Well, fields is a very kind word. We are still in school, so it really did start as kind of a summer passion project, summer break. So what is this? Yeah,
2015, I was finishing my thesis for architecture, and kind of came across an interesting opportunity. It was a healthy vending machine franchise, and both of our parents are physicians, and so we'd always hear horror stories about how there was limited options in clinics and hospitals for their patients. It's just all junk. And so he said, oh, maybe there's an opportunity to, get into this franchising business and put healthier options in front of patients. And quickly came to find out, this is 2015, where I think the only other protein snack was Quest, maybe Quest.
Skinny Pop was obviously kind
Cliff
of big.
Bar. I mean, it was a different landscape back then.
Yeah.
And where that led us to was not having that many options to stock these vending machines with. And so we said, I don't know where the crazy idea came from to just start making just cheese snacks filled with protein at home. But one summer we just started going door to door to all these nurses and dietitians and selling them. They were selling like hotcakes. I mean, there wasn't protein snacks around at the time.
Yeah. And so were the cheese crackers like the first product that you ever created and you stuck with that, or did it start with other things? And you
No, I mean, that was it. That was the beginning. We really took a kind of a market survey of these different settings, right? So hospital clinics, waiting rooms, and these sort of areas, and said, all right, well, you need to find a protein packed snack. And so when you're snacking, what do you enjoy to eat? And most of the time, especially in South Texas, it was salty, crunchy, cheesy, maybe spicy. It was kind of the big hitters. And so again, when you looked at the market at the time, it was dense protein bars and shakes was kind of the fashion form to get this into the market. And so Quest chips at the time were not where they are today. And so they've come a long way. But we said, all right, let's see what we can come up with, and quite literally started hand rolling batch after batch after batch in the kitchen at home. We said, what's the best way to pack protein into this little treat? And it was cheese. Cheese itself is an incredible ingredient, and that quickly became unsustainable. The Boy Scout model of going door to door and selling cheese crackers. And one ambitious day we said, well, I'm tired of driving around, especially in South Texas, going miles and miles. Well, there's an H-E-B in every corner of the city. How about we just get into H-E-B and we'll, just make it easy, one-stop shop for us and for the patients and for everyone. And that was probably the most naive thing we could have said, but it brought us down this path.
Well, what had triggered that decision was, I guess, word caught wind of what we were doing in the clinics, and upper management shut us down. They're like, you guys can't, you're not part of our system. You can't come in and sell cheese crackers in our clinics. Like, this is just crazy, like this is medical space. So then by that point, we had, kind of a cult following, where patients were accustomed to eating their little cheesy snack every day at 1 p.m. And they're like, where can we buy Cheddies? Which is where Tomas was alluding to us going to H-E-B. And we actually had to sneak onto the campus and kind of, I guess, how do you say, we kind of surprised the buyer.
Trojan horse.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's like, who are you guys? And like, do you have a meeting? We're like, well, no, we're just the Cheddy brothers. And, we made this awesome snack. Can you put it in your stores? And she's like, get out. It's like, this is ridiculous. And about maybe 3 months later, she emailed back or called, I can't remember. It was like, hey, just wanted to, pseudo apologize. I was just caught off guard, but I actually did have a chance to talk with the team, and your snacks are terrible. The formula was totally different. I mean, we're very, very focused on the nutritional aspect of it. And
how are you making it at this time? Were you like making it in your kitchen, or
rolling
was this
them on the kitchen, transferring one cracker at a time and it was just like, I mean, it was like 30 grams of protein a serving. I mean, it was just gritty protein thing. But she was like, I like the concept. If you can come back with a refined product and show that you can fulfill a pallet,
not only a pallet, but a truckload of
truckload. we can try to help you all out. And that's really where the journey began, was figuring out, how do you even fulfill a pallet, just, to their standards. And so it was maybe about a year out before we could even approach her again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And just a question on the product makeup and kind of what you set out to create, and then we'll get to HEB again. So you wanted, it sounds like a healthier cheese cracker and also one with more protein. And it seems like those both meet just by using real cheese and using more cheese, right?
Yeah.
So what was, I guess, the more important objective in your head? Was it to use like more natural ingredients or to create this high protein type snack? Because we see protein exploding in today's world, and
Right.
you know it exists in every snack category that there is now. So I'm just curious, kind of what the thought process was then.
Yeah, I mean, well, natural was always kind of the bare minimum. I mean, to us, the ecosystem kind of turned into, oh, everything has to be natural. But from where we started, it was what ingredients can you go get off the shelf? What is the highest quality? Because with all of those attributes come health for the most part. You know, you're using the highest quality dairy and, you know, highest quality flours. You're going to have just a high quality product, and one that ended up being nutrition. And when we started, it was let's pack protein, let's remove carbs, and it was this hyper bomb of a cracker. And then found that it was worth finding a sweeter middle ground.
Yeah, it definitely it evolved because our market shifted as well from going from clinics to center store, and what we found was that okay, maybe people don't need 15 grams of protein per serving when they're accustomed to only getting 3. So like we started adapting our formula to meet the consumer needs a little bit better, So we started, refining the formula and ended up today where we found that it's a very nice sweet spot between taste and nutritional, so on and so on.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Okay, so you started it in 15. You went through you stalked the HEB buyer, you convinced them to take it into the store. When did they first put that product on shelf? Where are we now?
Well, coincidentally enough, HEB was not our first purchaser. They gave us all the terrible feedback, and we went to correct it. But you can fast forward now to 2017, mid 2017, where we had spent the last year and a half trying to find a manufacturing home to get this product made. And there was a few smaller gluten-free facilities around the country that could have been okay for us, but we were using real wheat flour, and we still do today. And so we had to kind of jump scales, and ended up bouncing around, I think, 3 or 4 different sites in order to find someone that was willing to make less than 1 week's worth of production. And how many units?
Because these are football size stadiums. It's either like football size stadiums or
manufacturing,
like self-loading ovens. There's no middle ground.
Yeah,
and that's
totally. Yeah, that's what I work with early stage CPGs all the time. It's one of the biggest challenges of the industry is the manufacturing side of it.
We were jumping. We had to jump to the deep end of scaling this almost right away in order to get to the consistent level of product that is required on shelves, and what the customers demand and what we want to put in front of them. And so by just continuing going, we got our first actually order from Hy-Vee in the Midwest. So they said, all right, ship us out.
We were in the Sprint Accelerator program, which I don't know if that's what it's called anymore, but
DFA now.
DFA and Sprint, kind of a weird collab, but we became good friends with the Dairy Farmers of America, who put us in touch with cheese producers and so on and so on. And we were exposed to Hy-Vee, who's a regional grocery store there. And coincidentally, we had already pitched the product to the buyer there months ago. And one day he calls us up and he's like, hey, I saw y'all's pitch recently and I need a truckload at my dock in like 3 months. And we're like, whoa, we had never even fulfilled an order yet alone, we were just kind of getting the formula to the right spot to produce at that scale. And we were like, if you don't mind sharing, what was the change of heart? Because you had already turned us away. And he said, well, my boss came in this morning and said his wife went looking for Cheddies and couldn't find him in the store. So what had happened was he put Cheddies out in the snack room his boss took it home, where his wife found them in their pantry. And when she went rushing back to the grocery store to find Cheddies, they were nowhere to be found. So it was this whole funny full circle story where the boss's wife ended up getting us our first shot. I mean,
the power of targeted product
absolutely.
sampling.
Yeah, it saved
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then it was just, I don't know, you almost kind of go into tunnel vision mode, just creating product and getting going and calling store after store after store. And from 2018 to when we first started getting in touch with Redbud, we grew from, I don't know, what was it, 150 stores to close to 1,000, and then
yeah, we'll get to Anish. I think it's a really interesting part of this conversation to talk about Redbud Brands, which Anish is the president of, and love to kick it over to him to explain sort of what Redbud does. But to close off on the Cheddies, like the OG Cheddies before Redbud was in the picture. So basically, you started expanding through retail like 2018 to 2020, and at that point, it sounds like you were looking for like a strategic partner, investors to help elevate the brand.
Yeah, pandemic hit, obviously put just a huge stress on supply chain, and I'm sure you've heard a bunch of these stories across the board. But we at the same time came across an airline deal that seemed like a really sweet opportunity, and so there was all these kind of inflection points happening, and we figured we needed to bring in a strategic to help really take this thing to the next level and get smooth sailing across the pandemic and all those other strains, and ended up being perfect timing. I mean, couldn't have hoped for better.
Francisco and I mean, our roles we had figured out quite nicely, but always felt kind of like we were bootstrapping the deal for a little bit too long there, right? I mean, 6 years to get off the ground.
We'd even taken in money from investors in Mexico City. We had to go all the way to Mexico, open up a bank account in Mexico City, and anything for cash, right? And so
anything to survive.
Just surviving paycheck to paycheck and PO to PO, and that was kind of the name of the game for 6 years. So that can really wear on a founder team.
Yeah, it's brutal, but it's also highly relatable in today's day and age. It's ridiculously tough to raise capital in today's market, and that's what we're helping brands do over here. But yeah, I think this is a great segue. So Anish, would love to kind of hear from your perspective. I believe you were at Redbud at the time, so you had. Let's start with when did you meet these guys, and when did you first learn about the brand?
Yeah, it was a couple of years before that Cisco had reached out to me. I was running 4505 Meats, which is a pork rind business that I was out in San Francisco to run. And it was probably my first few weeks there. I was connected to Cisco and loved the idea, concept, loved the name. And we'd actually tried it before we moved from Austin to San Francisco. So, we knew what it was and we liked it. So, it's kind of helping them strategically along the way, trying to help them make introductions and whatnot. Fast forward, sold 4505, had been operating another business. Had joined the board of FitJoy, which is a grain-free pretzel business based here. And they were talking to Redbud before I was involved about making a strategic investment and maybe help operating the company. And Cisco had reached out. We've been talking kind of through the whole process. And so I joined the board initially to kind of help on the leadership side. And Redbud has like a big shared services team. We can talk a little bit more about Redbud if you want, but we have a big shared services team. So it was meant to kind of help the brand because there was like a lot of passion in the company at Redbud about Cheddies and like the potential. We saw it as like a real disruptor to Cheez-It and to even Annie's because they're just not something to fill that void of a healthy real ingredient product that you graduate from after Annie's, and you don't want to go to Cheez-It, or you don't want to go to one of the incumbents that is, has artificial flavors or colors or 15 or 20 ingredients. So yeah, joined then, and then we were off to the races.
And Anish, so you joined the board. Was it the three of you who were the board of Cheddies at the time?
Yeah, so once I joined, it was another, Redbud, some Redbud folks, and then the brothers on the board. Yeah,
Right.
so Redbud put in some of their own capital as well as raised some outside capital to, to restructure the business and to recapitalize the business.
So that was a huge inflection point in Cheddies history, right? It was I guess a restructuring, a recap, and then an infusion of resources into the brand.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, we were introduced to just a team of facilitators that execute on the business plan and really keep the structure in line and pointed towards, a strong goals, yearly, monthly, annual, down the road. And, Francisco and I were doing all the hats as, most founders do.
Yeah.
And so when one person's, living at the manufacturing site all day, it's all the buildup of the sales and the buildup of marketing, everything kind of keeps on occurring. And so when the Redbud team we were introduced to the Redbud team, and we saw, all right, well, there's now accounting help, there's sales help, there's all sorts of help available, and they came in and did exactly that.
Yeah, it's a really unique product. So I think that was, that was different than a lot of brands that are just, can take something off the shelf and it's a branding play or it's like a slight ingredient play. This is like a complicated product to make, and as you're mentioning, Kyle, like something like crackers, you have to make tens of thousands of pounds of them. It's kind of the minimum run, and so it did need capital to like perfect the formulation. And it's still a work in progress. That's just the way it's food. It's real food. It's
Humidity from yesterday to today.
Exactly. Use a different oven. It's hot outside. It's cold outside. Like all of that stuff impacts the quality of the product. And so I think it's hard to do bootstrap this type of product. But they did a great job with the naming and the brand and like the concept and what the real value prop was. And so we love that. And I think the Redbud team really liked that about the product.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the nature of better product. It's a real ag product. It's food. So, it can definitely understand why it would be challenging to scale that with little resources. But just to close off on why you got involved, sounds like the product itself is where it started. And the market potential is enormous. If you look at Cheez-Its as I guess your benchmark for like the size of the addressable market. And you see it happening across all CPG categories. Like I think a close example in a comparable category is Pop-Tarts and Kellogg, which is over $1 billion, and then Flings. They just completed a round and they're growing quite a bit. But yeah, I feel like you're kind of a similarly positioned brand.
Yep, for sure. I think what is definitely an advantage is the difficulty of scaling the brand, as I'm sure the whole team has seen. It's, an intricate product, but with that, it separates you from others wanting to enter the space. So, it's difficult, but at the same time, it can be rewarding once you pass that threshold.
Yeah. And Anish, I think it'd probably be helpful for people who don't know what Redbud typically does. I know it's a venture studio. I don't think people really know what that means. It's kind of like a nebulous term. Can you just quickly tell us like a little bit more about how Redbud works with brands, and then maybe how many you partner with, like Cheddies? Because I know it's not many, so there's something special about
Redbud was like developed as a venture studio to kind of build brands in-house from scratch, but also accelerate brands. So where there was like execution issues or they saw opportunity and liked the concept, but wanted to professionalize a team or help operationally, we've invested and taken operating control of companies in the consumer space. So we look at food, beverage, health, wellness, beauty, pet, and we have companies in those verticals. Some that we started from scratch, some that we've taken operating control of, and then also investing. So we have a fund that we invest out of to early stage companies, and then actually as they get later stage, we put together SPV deals to fund later stage businesses too, kind of all the way up to middle market. Sorry about that. We're kind of full full scale of the consumer world when you think about brands, like from the very beginning to hopefully like an exit to a big strategic.
Right. Super helpful. And then is there, I guess, an objective for, do you sell once you get to a certain point? Do you treat each company
Everything's a little bit different.
uniquely?
Yeah. I mean, the idea is scale it to a point where we built a whole team to that business, and then, may raise additional outside capital, or it may be funded by existing investors in the business. And then, sell it strategically when it makes sense, which is usually like, 50 million or so plus in revenue. And that takes time, but hopefully the expertise of our broader kind of platform, we have a shared services team with experts kind of in each of those fields. So hopefully that accelerates the timeline a little bit and, sets the company up for that exit. But yeah, the idea would be to scale it to a point where we get interest from both strategics and financial sponsors in the business.
Got it. And can you remind me when was this deal? When did this happen? Was this 2020, late 2020,
Late
21?
2022 is
22,
when,
yeah.
22.
when they finally closed that deal. Yeah.
Okay, so closed in 22, and then let's bring us up the past few years on what you've seen. I think there may have been like a relaunch of the brand in 23. Can you kind of talk
Yeah,
about
sure.
from
So
when you got involved to today?
yeah, we worked with the brothers on, kind of updating packaging, formulation, trying to hone in everything about the brand and the brand promise. So used an outside agency to kind of update the packaging, and then kind of relaunched what we were with retailers. So with KeHE and UNFI and other distributors, started opening up more food service. So got, Whole Foods nationwide placement, got Target nationwide placement. We took investment from 7-Eleven. And so we have placement 7-Eleven, we'll go system-wide there. So we've had some really great success based on the foundation that the brothers built. But that all kind of started from, working with the brothers when we brought the company into Redbud and kind of executing on all those objectives on how to scale a business. And so, the last 2 years, we gained all of that distribution, and have some really great retail partners, and puts us, I think I calculated the other day, within 6 miles of almost everyone in the United States that you can buy a bag of, a box of Cheddies, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible from starting at the medical facilities in Texas to where you are now. And the accounts that you just named are of course the biggest and most powerful of many in the country. So what's the focus from a retail standpoint? Is it the grocery channel? Is it convenience? Kind of what's the primary
our real focus
market?
and what I've always thought kind of as a way to be really disciplined when you're launching and scaling in this space is if you have two really great retailers, one that hits mass and one that hits natural, and we have that with Whole Foods and Sprouts and Target. Like our real focus is just building those relationships, going deep with those partners, and building velocity at those stores. And so that's what our entire team is focused on right now, is being best in class for those retailers that we have, and then eventually, going broader. But right now, the idea is not to build more doors, but to really build strong relationships with those partners and build a velocity story there.
Yeah, velocity over all else, especially door count. So I think that's really smart. And is there a geographical focus? Sounds like you're everywhere in the country. It's more like these retailers, you're supporting those big four retailers, and it's across the whole nation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, we say no to retailers. Now we're at that point where people want to bring in the product and there's an expectation, but I think, we're still pretty small. We still need to be focused and disciplined. And so, that's hard to do even with my experience, to say no to some opportunities. But I think, that's the way we're able to scale other businesses. And that's the way that our mentality is at Redbud, is to really be disciplined about the retailers we have and making sure that it's a good story to sell, down the road.
Right. And what are you finding out from consumers? How are people receiving the product? What seems to be resonating? What are you hearing on that
I
front?
mean, people love it. I think they've always loved the product, and they've loved the idea of the product. I mean, I think the greatest feedback we get is from retail buyers that like understand exactly what we're trying to do. It's like you graduate from Annie's, you move into what next is that consumer eating, and so it needs to be fun, but it also needs to be, you know, responsible. It needs to like have attributes that align with today's consumer, you know, whether it's millennial or Gen Z or Gen Alpha, and what attributes can you bring to that category that are different. And so we're not, you know, gluten free, grain free, or anything like that. We're still a very traditional cracker, but you know, we're simple ingredients. We're using real cheese. You know, the cheese comes from regenerative dairy, which is like a very important, you know, attribute for, you know, for I think consumers. And so while that's like hard to communicate to people, it's like one of the foundations of the brand, and retailers love that part of it too. So
Yeah, I see the on the box it's super prominent, save the planet, eat our
Yeah.
crackers, which is bold as hell
yeah,
and would love so it's and behind that is the regenerative agriculture and that piece of it. Could you talk to that? Like how is it saving the planet? What does that mean?
yeah. I mean, I think all of this came from Cisco and Tomas's work before Redbud was even involved. So.
Yeah, I mean, in when we had originally started working with DFA, that's very mainstream dairy. I mean, I think they're the largest dairy co-op in the world, and obviously the connotation with that side of the industry is not as reputable, right? Like with some of these brands, what is it? Anyway, some of the milk brands kind of having a negative connotation to them. So we said we need to gravitate towards kind of the brand leaders that are representing responsible dairy production and so on and so on. And it just so happened to be regenerative producers. They just kind of just overlapped coincidentally, but we just felt like we wanted to source our ingredients from producers that were being humane and you know, cautious about their footprint and carbon footprint and so on and so on. And so it was just a really perfect mesh for our brand. And we spent a lot of time out on the West Coast with a dairy producer out there who, I mean, you step foot on their pasture and you immediately want to use their milk because it's just nothing like any of the other industries or brands in the industry. So we're like, this is perfect. You know, it embodies who we are and who we want to be and where we want to source our ingredients from. So it was a no-brainer for us.
And is it fair to say that it probably leads to a higher quality product as well?
Yeah, I think there's
Right.
at this point scientific studies out there that have proven that it's a more nutrient dense and it's got more vitamins and so on and so on. We don't really focus all that much because we're a snack and we focus on taste, but it's definitely a benefit. You know, I mean,
Yeah, you can let the consumer make that assumption, but I think you know, it's something people are getting more familiar with. And even like just a personal example, my family for the first time, we just got a half cow. And you know, we went to the farm in the hills and like we like saw it and all that and it's just like the habits of eating are changing drastically, especially with like I've got young kids, so like what I feed them is so dramatically different than the foods my parents fed
Yeah.
me. Sorry, mom, dad, but like it's just the truth.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear that part
right?
about the
Yeah,
food.
it goes back to, you know, if you were to raise your own, you know, meat or dairy or grow your own food, how would you do it? And those are the producers we want to be sourcing our stuff from. So, you know, we also think consumers are shifting in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed that more so recently? I know the brand is starting to grow quite a bit more, but like has anything changed the last year or two?
No, I mean, we see that more and more people are looking to our partners for dairy, and for cheese, and so you know, it's starting to stress that supply chain a little bit. But you know, we were one of the first, and so we've got great partners that as long as we're providing them with good lead times, they're able to produce for us, and more dairy dairies are coming online to produce regen milk and also process regen cheese. So that's exciting for us as we scale.
For sure.
Yeah, I remember still 2 years ago, or a little more than 3 years ago when we first were doing that rebranding, that coming to the market. We'd sealed the regenerative part and had our producer and the supply chain lined up, but we spent the good part of maybe 2 months saying, well, if we put regenerative on the front of the box, will anyone even know what that means? I mean, it has come that far, really, where you can use words like regenerative and you don't need to tag on a description to the end of it. So it's been pretty nice.
Yeah, I think that's true to an extent. Like we do live in a bubble in some ways, and like we're like early stage CPG natural food people.
Right.
I know, like man, I'm just killing my parents here. If I asked my dad that, like he would have no clue what that means. But like that works with the marketing of how you position it on the box, would save the planet. People can understand that, and then they go deeper.
Right. Yeah, we definitely are targeting the next wave, of snackers that are more, focused on those types of things.
Yeah, like want to be educated about the ingredients and where things come from and the way that they're brands that they trust and want things they want to consume, where it comes from. And so, being transparent is important, about supply chain, ingredients, and the story. I think that's all important parts of it.
Agreed. And yeah, this has been a cool conversation. Thanks for coming on and telling the story. Before we go, I'd love to touch on really two other things. One, a little bit on the marketing side. We talked about the messaging on the box and the positioning and all that, but I also saw, I believe Steve Aoki is a part of this thing. I saw there's like a special flavor, so I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah.
And then to close, love your take on where this could go, what the future might look like, and
sure.
Yeah, where?
Yeah, we got introduced to Steve through like some connections, and we sent him a box. He was coming off of like a Takis engagement, and we were like, shot in the dark. Let's see if he likes Cheddies, and he loved them. And so we went out to Vegas and did a photo shoot with them. He's just been awesome to work with. He's like a huge fan of the product, and it's like stocked everywhere for him. And we'll be launching an exclusive Pizza Aoki flavor with Whole Foods in the fall. Has some really sick graphics on the front. And he has a Pizza Aoki chain of restaurants. I think it's just in Vegas right now, but they've been kind of all over. So yeah, we're excited to launch that in the fall with him. So
nice. And is that a Whole Foods exclusive flavor?
Exclusive flavor. Yep. Yeah.
Super smart. That'll probably help you land a whole bunch of new placements in store, and you get a lot of ways to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, we're excited about that one. And then, sorry, what was your other question, Colin?
Yeah, really just paint the picture for where this might go in the next few years and sort of what the longer term objective is.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's like we think of this as like snacking cracker, right? So we're just not like a box on the shelf in the cracker aisle. We see this as more of like a snack, like a Cheez-It or a Goldfish or something. So we see us as getting outside of just that cracker aisle as being a real kind of snack food, which we've done, which I think you find us at C-Store, you find us in corporate commissaries, you find us in kind of the alt channel. That's where we're focused. So I think scaling the brand within these SKUs, we have a couple of new products in the pipeline that fit within that kind of snacking profile, like better for you, but like reimagining kind of staples that still fit within our ethos. And so scaling the brand in our retail partners and with new SKUs, couple new flavors, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is out of bounds to ask, but it's all got to be cheese products, right? Cheddies, like
right? Yeah, we've talked about like how you get out of, but the brand means cheese and cheddar. Like that's and the brand name is just so great. Like I have 2 little kids, and they are talking about Cheddies constantly. Like where are the Cheddies? They like I have some in my
it's
office.
A fun word.
It's a fun word. It's like it's kind of nailed it on that. So
Yeah.
It's I could totally. I've got 3 kids that are 5 and under, and we haven't had Cheddies in our household yet. But I could just hear them
Yes,
like yelling
yeah,
about it. It's the perfect like
Yeah.
little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, brand name.
Cheese for now. I mean, maybe there'll be a Cheddies shampoo or something.
Always room for weird brand collaborations
Exactly.
to just get the word out a little bit more.
Well, yeah, they have the shampoo with the crumble cookie. I mean, people are getting really
We're open to
creative. Yeah.
collabs, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True that. Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate you coming on. And if you launch a shampoo, I don't know, you'll probably have made it at that point. But in any case, it's been really fun to hear about your story, and we'll be following along. And congrats on all the success so far.
Okay, thanks
Yeah.
a lot.
Thanks for having us
Yeah,
on.
appreciate it.